No, right. Now, I'm a purist. I'm just talking business-wise.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be smoking the product. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to have a real product, but I'm going to be flipping that for the money so I can go get the real stuff.
So you brought up a point, and we'll go a little bit quick fire on this, on these next few issues. But you brought up the thing about the governing body, and one of the things I thought was a little bit interesting was, this is an agricultural product, and I don't know if you heard the last interview, but I kind of said it there, and I'll say it again. But it's an agricultural product. And if we gave farmers, like real farmers, an opportunity to get in the game, and again, it's a very, very different game. Very, very different game. But it's still agriculture. And if we could have found a way to somehow make that work, it really could have set a precedent moving forward on how the government could look at it, the federal government, how other states could look at it. Do I think that the Liquor Control Board not handling? Yes, God, yeah, thank you for that.
That could cause a little bit more of the social justice issue too, as well. I like that idea with the farmers getting into it, but it's already a social justice issue now with a certain party.
And again, it's this ain't growing corn. This is way more complex. There's a lot of complexities. I mean, is there commercial outdoor grows? I don't even know if there are.
Not in Pennsylvania. So in other states, there are commercial outdoor grows. That's not permitted under the way the rules and regulations are written, which is why some of it would be a challenge to get farmers into the industry, but we'd have to think about what the rules and regulations are to make sure that we bring down like the regulatory burden enough that they could participate. But then also we've got to consider the regulatory burden of, let's call them commercial operators, and what we could do to lighten that burden too, right? So I think it's something that we could think about. And Representative Melissa Schusterman, who's actually fairly local too on the other side of Valley Forge Mountain, she has a piece of legislation that she filed about getting farmers involved in both the medical cannabis space in one iteration of the bill, and I think the current iteration of the bill is for adult use. And
I don't hate that idea at all. I like it.
We're an agricultural state.
We are.
So,
no
but
doubt.
what I think's important is talking to the stakeholders. Do the farmers want it? Do they want to consider it? Because you have to, like, what does it mean for them? Because remember, it's still federally illegal. So what does it mean for them in terms of subsidies that they're pulling for other products?
That's right.
What does it term? I was driving up to a conference in Hershey and passing like a lot of the farms that are part of like the Land O'Lake Collective or something like that.
Yeah.
What does it mean for their relationships with other businesses? Before we like dangle a shiny object in front of them, I think we have to think about some of this and talk to them about some of it before we do it, right?
But in terms of that, the federal government hasn't pulled funding from any states or any road projects for states that have gone recreational. And so, while that doesn't set the precedent, it does kind of speak to the fact that that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
But nonetheless, there's uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty and you're in business, you tend not to screw with it, no matter how much uncertainty there is.
It
like
could provide it. Oh, I'm sorry. It could provide an interesting step for some of these like generational farms as the younger generations maybe don't want to continue in the family farming business. Would this provide a new crop for them and want to stay in business? And it might, but let's get them to the table and have this conversation about what the best way to give them access to.
Absolutely. I think they should be a part of the conversation. Let's see if this, like you said, let's see if the stakeholders are interested or not. But it does present an interesting idea, and I think if done properly and involved, it could set a road forward for the federal government on how they could do it. I'm not opposed to doing something different than everyone else, but it's got to make sense.
But, you got that glass half full, glass half empty. We just did a story not too long ago about the California growers, Humboldt County and everything, and how all those guys, because of the drop in price of the cannabis at the stores, makes all the money they spend on equipment, all the money it takes to process the marijuana, they were losing money. Yeah. So a lot of them owed money to the state or to their people they bought equipment from, and what they did was just up and left their farms, left their houses. So it's it's complex.
And I think that's one of the things that concerns me as we're developing policy, that we don't we don't want to create a market where there's an oversupply, right? We tend to see markets get in trouble, folks not able to pay their taxes because they can't sell their product, et cetera, when there's an oversupply. But at the same time, we want to balance that against making sure that we're creating enough opportunities, whether it's for farmers or for social equity applicants. Yes. You know, we don't want to shut new entrants and folks that are interested out of the market. We just want to balance against setting up people. Like, we don't want to set people up to fail, right? We want to set people up to successful. So how can we make sure that they have the resources and make sure that the number of licenses are appropriate, so we're not just handing them out to watch people fail a couple years later.
And the rest is just normal business. You're going to have some succeed, some don't.
Right.
But you're setting them up for, for the maximum.
And you're making sure the playing field doesn't have like obstacles. It's not set up to benefit MSOs versus an individual or a smaller business.
In a market where, let's just be blunt, we are MSO dominated. My organization takes a position that those very businesses should get to market first. But how can we use that to help lessen the burden to entry for new market entrants, right? How can we make sure that on day one, the social equity fund has enough money?
So you have MSOs that are members and
yeah.
So, I mean, that's interesting because, there's a lot of people who think that they are very disruptive in their business practices we're not going to go down the MSO road because we're running out of time and I still want to handle DUI and I want to handle Second Amendment. But, I think it's interesting.